Thanks, Jessica and Mario, and welcome everyone. Thanks, Jessica and Mario, and welcome everyone to our October Cabinet meeting. As you'll be aware from previous meetings, this will be live streamed. I'm going to ask Jessica to read out the protocol for participation in remote meetings, but just to remind colleagues that haven't necessarily always experienced meets, that it's whoever is speaking who is the live feed. So it's really important for you people to remember that, but I'll just hand over to Jessica to read the protocol.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Okay, we can only speak when invited to by the chair. All participating members are to keep their camera on during the proceedings, unless they are having bandwidth connection issues. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communications via the chair. Please ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking, apart from the chair, who does not need to mute their mic at any stage to ensure that the meeting is conducted effectively. If you are referring to a specific page or picture in the report, refer to the page number. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function in the Google Meet to alert the meeting, or dial in on the phone number and using the PIN provided within the invite or on the council's website within the meetings page. Please do not use the chat function or put formal questions to the committee or make other comments. Any persistent obstructive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting.
Thanks, Jessica. In terms of announcements, I'm not going to make an opening speech in the same way that I have previously, partly because these meetings are obviously becoming more routine, but we also have full council where I'll be making Mayor's statement on Wednesday. I would relay, obviously, I think all of our concerns and anger at the cyber attack, though, that took place last week on the council. It's the last thing neither our residents nor our staff needed during the situation that we face as we move through Tier 2. But obviously there is a huge amount going on in the borough, and this does not help our response to that in the slightest. And it clearly also has had an impact on how this meeting's papers have been distributed and obviously the preparation work. So again, apologies to anyone that has both resident and member that sort of lived through and suffered from that over the last couple of days. Clearly it still has an impact on our services, and I will touch more on that on Wednesday. But I, again, just pay a huge tribute to all of our staff. Whether they're working directly in trying to fix these problems or they're people that are using systems that are being impacted. Again, Hackney staff has risen to the challenge over the last week or so. That is probably enough for me other than to announce the Cabinet changes. We all wish Councillor Salmon well with her maternity leave. I haven't heard news yet of whether we have a junior member of the Labour group joining us yet. But obviously that is very imminent, and obviously it's a wonderful opportunity for Councillors Williams, Kennedy, Maxwell, and obviously Councillor Vajana Thomas to take up new portfolios and roles. And also I announced just over a week ago in the run-up to World Mental Health Day the appointment of Councillor Lynch as our new mental health champion. But beyond that, I'll move into apologies to absence. The only apologies I've been notified are Anne Cannings, I think as Group Director. Are there any other apologies to absence other than possible lateness for Councillor John Thomas? I'm not seeing any. I've not been notified. I've been notified of no urgent items of business. In terms of declarations of interest, are there any new declarations? I've not been notified of any intention to conduct the business in private. This week there are no questions, deputations or petitions, but rest assured, Cabinet colleagues, there are plenty on Wednesday evening at full council. So democracy is alive and well. Can I hand over to I think we've got a slight error. It's the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting on the agenda.
Sorry, Mayor, we don't actually have the minutes in the folders. They were lost in modern.gov.
Okay.
Apologies for that. That shouldn't have been included in the agenda.
So they will be updated as soon as we're able to access the minutes, is that?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, they'll be put on the folder and they will be published online, but we will obviously need to get them cleared by Cabinet.
Okay, so we'll defer that to a future meeting. It wasn't on my briefing, but I noticed its absence as an eagle-eyed chair of Cabinet. I'll hand over to Councillor Burke.
Sorry, just obviously given the circumstances and noting the fact that we will agree those minutes at a later stage, I thought I'd just note that further to the attendance of Mr. Watson at the previous Cabinet meeting, subsequent to that, arrangements have been made to increase the grace period for the deliveries of food parcels in the borough, as requested by Mr. Watson. I just thought it was an opportunity to note that now, but I'm sure we can touch on that when we agree the minutes formally in future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burke. That's a really positive update, and I know you've been doing a lot of work to ensure that could happen with the parking team. Deputy Mayor Renison, the OFP.
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. And another one for the eagle-eyed and one you'll have spotted that this says that the OFP applies to Homerton Ward only. We haven't gone down a new approach to budgeting in Hackney. The OFP applies to all wards. So in terms of the OFP itself, sadly, these are all too familiar figures, which reflects the impact of coronavirus. It's still the very surreal scenario of reporting an estimated end-of-year overspend to the tune of 65 million. But we've broken down the figures in there, including giving the government's contribution to emergency funding that we've received to date, and hopefully more funding to come. We've broken it down by different areas of the council, and we've attributed what's linked to COVID and what's linked to overspend for the causes, and we're confident that we've got the number for this year down to a figure that we are able to manage, so circa 10 million, which we feel we can manage as a shortfall for this financial year. What is becoming increasingly pressing is certainty around next year's funding. It's slightly unbelievable that we don't yet have clear steer from central government over what kind of funding or support we'll get for the next financial year. And to be this late in the year and not in a position that we can put firm numbers against our budget is deeply unhelpful. So just to reiterate those calls on central government, we have to set a balanced budget, that we have no alternative. And at the moment, we're working off estimates for the coming year. And we really need clarity from central government about what kind of support we can expect from them. But other than that, I'd report as set out.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Renison. Does anyone want to ask any questions of the report or make any statements? No. I know that Councillor Woodley and I have written our monthly or almost monthly letter to the Chancellor around SEND funding, and no doubt that will be published in due course through usual channels.
Has he replied yet?
I don't think we've had a recent reply. Councillor Woodley.
Yes, we had a reply to the first letter, which, offered confirmation of additional funding coming in. But as I've pointed out in every letter, it falls far short of what we need, with a cumulative shortfall of looking like around 13 million at the moment. So additional funding of 4.6 million is extremely welcome, but it's not really making much of a dent. And we have seen the SEND review push back to next year. We've seen lots of bodies asking for more information and assurances. There may be additional funding coming in, but with conditions, we don't know what those conditions are. It's, we need another letter. So I hope we do get another reply in response to this latest one.
If I used to be cheeky, I'd say that's a bit of a gap in the maths from the Chancellor there in terms of what they're offering and what we need.
I'm sure we would agree, Deputy Mayor Renison. No cheekiness required. I do draw members' attention to the exempt appendix, which I presume none of us are discussing at this moment, and unless we discuss it later, I won't move to exempt session, but it obviously is attached to the report. We're happy to agree the recommendations and note and agree the exempt appendix.
Agreed.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. It was probably remiss of me in the declarations not to mention that I've now been elected chair of the Transport and Environment Committee at London Councils. I just note that because some of the capital update refers to walking, cycling and sustainable transport schemes. The sign off of this report was obviously predates that, and I don't think has any impact on what we're seeking to do here. By way of introduction, again, this doesn't just affect Woodbury Down as a ward, so we haven't departed from it's correct on the face here, but it's not correct, I think, on the face of the main agenda pack. I'd just like to highlight the fantastic investment in the Woodbury Down Children's Centre, a project that is close to many of our hearts and will see substantial investment in early years provision there. And obviously our continued investment in our parks. Our parks have been a critical resource during this year amongst all years, but for all of those residents that don't have access to their own green space and amenity space, I'm sure that our parks will continue to play that valuable function in the weeks and months ahead. And I note, given the discussion around public toilets earlier in the year, the investment in public toilets in London Fields and Hagstone Park. And then finally, there's more work on sustainable transport. We're happy to agree the recommendations unless people have any questions or comments.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you all. Agreed. Now a very welcome and happy paper. Thank you, Guy. A very welcome and happy paper in terms of the child-friendly places supplementary planning document. I think this has been a huge team effort. I'm going to name all the cabinet members involved in that team effort, but I think all of us have been involved one way or another. It's obviously in Councillor Nicholson's name being a planning document, but I know that Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Woodley want to speak to the item, but also recognise the work that Councillor Kennedy did in his previous portfolio around the child-friendly places and borough work. But I'll hand over to Councillor Nicholson.
Thanks, Mick Glenville. And indeed, just to kind of echo the extraordinary teamwork that has gone into developing this very extensive, thorough and focused piece of planning policy. Before, if I may, handing over to Deputy Mayor Bramble and to Councillor Woodley to kind of formally introduce and move the policy document, it's just to kind of remind us this is an important document that will sit as part of Council's statutory development plan, which you may recall was adopted earlier in the year, formally LP Local Plan 2033. So it's a very relevant and very timely moment to be able to bring the child-friendly work into the formal statutory kind of arena as part of planning policy going forward. With that, if I may, Mayor Glanville, just hand over to Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Woodley to perhaps formally introduce the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to Councillor Woodley shortly, but just to say this has been a really exciting piece of work that we have been able to engage with, and Hackney is leading the way in terms of what it's doing around planning and the supporting documents that sit alongside this. But one of the things that I want to stress and reiterate, this isn't just about new builds and new property, so it isn't just about the future planning of what place spaces should look like. We are also doing extensive work about existing spaces for children and young people. So whether you live in a new build or existing property that is owned by the council, we're thinking about what that space looks like for you. I think one of the most interesting things and enjoyable things has been to watch every key stage, whether it's been early years, primary school children, Mayor Glanville, or the older children, thinking about public space and how they interface and engage around that, whether it's play with younger children or leisure for older children. And really, when you hear them, they have a real sense of place and really wanting to own that environment. And this work actually gives them a bit more coverage and a confidence to actually own their space in the community. Councillor Woodley, I'll just hand over to you because I get really excited and it's hard not to talk about.
Thank you. So it's absolutely true. It's lovely to have adopted this as part of a team, and I'm very grateful for all the words that have gone before. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity alongside you all to bring the Child-Friendly Places supplementary planning document here to Cabinet. It contributes towards delivering the Mayor's manifesto commitment to ensure that Hackney becomes a fully child-friendly borough, and it will achieve this objective by maximising the opportunities for safe play and outdoor activities across our streets, estates, parks, adventure playgrounds, new developments and open spaces as children and their families explore and discover the world around them. A child-friendly borough can be defined as a place that fulfills children's rights as citizens and ensures that their specific needs are met in neighbourhoods and development. Planning for child-friendly built environments is an evolving set of ideas concerned with shaping the physical features of neighbourhoods and cities, ensuring that children and young people have an opportunity to become more active and visible in the daily life of urban public spaces such as street parks and squares. Moreover, built environment interventions and initiatives aim to expand children's opportunities to have their views and experiences taken seriously by the development industry and to sit alongside those involved in decision making. Child-friendly design and planning needs to be considered at a strategic level at the start of any development process, all the way through to post-occupancy analysis stages. And this document aims to contribute towards an essential shift in how built environment professionals think about designing cities for children, transitioning away from segregated play spaces towards planning for a holistic and inclusive neighbourhood and citywide approach. Importantly, this draft SPD supports children and young people's rights to independent mobility, providing them with opportunities to move around in safe, healthy and unpolluted urban spaces. And with special educational needs and disabilities as a core part of my brief, the idea of independent mobility is extremely important to me, and I'm glad to see it at the heart of the draft. The SPD will provide further design guidance to supplement Hackney's recently adopted borough-wide local plan, as Councillor Nixon set out, relating to public realm, social and community infrastructure, health and wellbeing, livable neighbourhoods and play space. It will be a material consideration in the determination of planning applications and in plan making. The SPD will also provide guidance for projects outside of the planning process, including parks and streets initiatives, public realm and housing regeneration projects. The 8 child-friendly principles for Hackney are: shaping my borough to ensure children and young people in Hackney have the power to influence change where they live. Doorstep play, play on the way, people before cars. These are all elements that we've seen enacted by and led by children in the first wave of the pandemic, as we saw our streets reopen and be reclaimed by children. Contact with nature, places for all, making spaces children and young people actually want to be in, and health and wellbeing. The SPD identifies 3 neighbourhood place scales: the doorstep, streets and destinations, that reflect the 3 main types of places that a child in Hackney will grow up and experience within their neighbourhood. The SPD sets out tools which include the proposal for a child-friendly design standard, which is a series of questions or checklists to ensure the principles and design guidelines are being considered. It is intended that the child-friendly design standard be used by developers, designers, young people, community groups and the council to ensure the design guidance is being met. Hackney Council has established links with design professionals and experts in the field, which we would continue to draw on to help shape the guidance. And Deputy Mayor Bramble sort of touched on the pleasure and the process of engaging with some of those young people that have had such great input into the document. I'd really like to thank also, apart from my colleagues here, Gabriella Baddy, Lizzie Baird and Katie Glasgow for the dedicated work and inspiring research they've done to ensure this dialogue has informed the draft SPD that is the subject of this report. Approval is now sought to go forward for a wider public conversation and consultation, and I commend this report to Cabinet.
Thanks very much, all, and a truly inspiring report, and I hope it will have an impact on the borough post-consultation and final adoption for generations to come. Did anyone else want to contribute? I think Councillor Burke indicated in the chat.
Please, Chair.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to obviously welcome this piece of work and the speed with which it's been delivered within this term. We are, though it's easy to forget sometimes, given the way time has done overtime on us in recent years, only just over 2 years into the 2018 to 2022 term, and this is, I think, a major achievement. I think that the other thing to commend this particular document for is that we are serving the needs of a group of people who will not be able to reward us at the ballot box. This is a deeply principled document that places the needs of some of the most vulnerable people in our community first, and I think it demonstrates that this administration will continue to make the right decisions, though not necessarily always the easiest decisions. A final point I would make on this particular piece of work and its wider ramifications, Chair, is the way it's influenced policy making elsewhere. And I thought I ought to note that this piece of work under Councillor Kennedy. Just bear with me one moment. This piece of work under Councillor Kennedy actually inspired the 21st Century Streets programme, which we are developing through Street Scene, and we'll be delivering our first neighbourhood park at Cobblestone Crescent in the heart of Dalston, a nitrogen dioxide high exposure area in one of the most green space depleted areas of inner London. And so it's clear that the implications, the ramifications of this document go much wider than just the subject matter to which it kind of specifically pertains. And I hope that it will continue to influence myself and other cabinet members in our policy development by placing the needs of children first and foremost in the decisions that we make. And I'd like to thank Councillor Woodley for finalising this piece of work and look forward to working on it with her to ensure that our public realm matches the level of ambition for children in this document in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Silence. I think it's because it's, partly by what Councillor Burke has said, but also the contributions so far. Obviously, a sector-leading report. We already know it's inspired similar policy documents at the GLA on behalf of the Mayor of London, and we're sitting at the vanguard of this agenda. So I'm really pleased that hopefully we'll now be agreeing it to go out to consultation. You happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item 9 is the City and Hackney Safeguarding Adults Board Annual Report 2021-20. I'll ask Councillor Kennedy to introduce, but no doubt Dr. Cooper, as the chair of that board, will want to say a few words. And obviously it looks back, doesn't it, to 1920 and forward to 2021-20. So it's on the cusp of obviously the COVID crisis hitting, and I'm sure that's going to feature in the remarks by Councillor Kennedy and Dr. Cooper. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you very much, Chair. It does indeed look back to 1920, but it then also presents our 5-year strategy, looking forward for 5 years. As people who've had a chance to have a look at it will have seen, the first part of that strategy is our response to COVID and how we will take that work forward. We're very privileged to have Dr. Adi Cooper, the chair of the City and Hackney Safeguarding Adults Board, with us. She's not only worked hard for City and Hackney on this, she is a national expert and authority on safeguarding adults, and I'm delighted to introduce her.
Thank you, Councillor. Members will be aware that this is a statutory requirement for the board to produce an annual report and in fact to produce a plan. So I would say it's part of our accountability to residents that every year we say this is what we intended to do and this is what we have achieved. And the other point to make is that as other partnerships, it's both the contribution of individual members of the board, which I'm very grateful to for their very hard work around safeguarding adults, but also the sum total of what we do as a collective, as a partnership together. So as has already been pointed out, you have the report from 2019-2020, and that does seem like quite a long time ago, some really useful and very important achievements during that year, in particular 2 safeguarding adult reviews which were undertaken to gain learning. The first one, and again, statutory responsibilities for the board to publish these reports. The first one was the Jojo Star, which was a very sad narrative around a woman with Down syndrome who died, but I'm very pleased to say that there's been considerable learning and change and impact from that review in terms of improving the way in which people in the community are supported in terms of the specific issues that were raised through that report. And the second report, which was quite unusual, was a 4-borough partnership report around a man who died who was homeless. And again, very topical because we're currently in the process of a second review of the homeless man who died last summer in Stoke Newington. And the point of these reviews is to learn and improve practice, and there has been considerable learning and impact around understanding the safeguarding issues for homeless people, and I think there's further to go. I think another aspect that I wanted to emphasise was the joint working of the board with other partnerships. So in the year under review, we're looking at close working with the Community Safety Partnership on and the Children's Partnership on Modern Day Slavery, and later in the report you'll note that we're doing some joint work around transitional safeguarding. So this is safeguarding for young people, building on the work around contextual safeguarding in children's services and looking how we might take that forward more generally. The other achievement that I'm proud to or pleased to share is to do with our ongoing work with local communities and voluntary sector groups, the training of another cohort of safeguarding champions, because for me that raising of awareness within different communities across Hackney is incredibly central to the work of the board in terms of preventing safeguarding risks, so that we are not just looking at addressing those safeguarding risks, but also helping communities and individuals on a preventative front. There's also been some emphasis to try and recruit lay members, and which hasn't been so successful, but to establish and maintain communication with residents who do show an interest in safeguarding. And we now have a regular newsletter that goes out to residents who show an interest in safeguarding adult issues. The Safeguarding Adults Week that took place last year is, COVID permitting, taking place probably majority online this year as well, and again is part of the emphasis of the board on preventative work and awareness raising alongside the more protection aspects of safeguarding adults work. As Councillor Kennedy has already pointed out, we spent some time during this last year in revising and revisiting our strategy, because the first 5-year strategy, which was developed after the Care Act came into force, had come to an end. And the consultation on the new strategy was really helpful in producing the updated version that you have in your papers. I don't think that I would say very much, except to note that in terms of current challenges, there is a note in the report about COVID as it started to impact towards the end of that year, and that has been a major focus inevitably for the last few months or the last few weeks of this last year, and for this year, in the board seeking assurance from partners that they are meeting their safeguarding adult responsibilities alongside the very unprecedented challenge of responding to the impact of COVID and the lockdown on communities. So the executive group of the board has continued to meet, the executive committee has continued to meet more regularly in order to maintain a monitoring and assurance role and support role, I would say, the colleagues who sit on the board around ensuring that safeguarding issues are raised and addressed through this year. And as I bring the report, presumably this time next year, on the work that we've been doing this year, that will feature quite heavily in terms of the current levels of activity. I think if that's okay, Mayor Granville, I'll stop at that point, but I'm very happy to answer any questions or any comments that colleagues the members might want to raise. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive, and I was going to ask about one of those safeguarding reviews, but actually you addressed it in your opening remarks, and I'm pleased that that is still ongoing. And obviously I think all of us share that commitment about homelessness and rough sleeping and how we can better safeguard some of the most vulnerable adults in our borough. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on the report?
Yes, Chair. If I could just say quickly, thank you, Councillor Kennedy and AD, for presenting the report. And you mentioned contextual safeguarding, which would allude to working together. And I just thought it important, Mayor Glanville, to mention that staff continually to work together across children and adults to have that seamless thread of young people as they use our services, taking that holistic approach to ensure that actually if a young person that leaves children's services has to then need support in adults, that staff are working really well and working well together to ensure that whatever that means for that young person, it is minimal in terms of the impact of change, but just making sure that it's seamless and that we don't lose people between services. And I just wanted to commend the work that staff are doing around that, Meg Glanville.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor Bramble. Well, I think we're noting the report. Can I just say it's remiss of us, we haven't had what I'd hoped would be our annual meeting prior to this meeting taking place at our more informal cabinet gatherings, just to go through the report in more detail. And so hopefully we can arrange that in not too distant future. And I know we also really value your contribution at what is now becoming our reconstituted Health and Wellbeing Board. So there are plenty of places to take forward as a partnership with you and the board, but showing that political commitment to the work that you're doing. But I apologise we haven't done that prior to this meeting and this occasion. Are we happy to note the report, and then hopefully we can take it forward through that mechanism?
Noted.
Yeah. Noted.
Noted.
Thank you. Dr.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Noted.
I'm going to turn to Councillor Nicholson and item 10, which is the response to the Skills Economy and Growth Commission and their work around making the local economy work for Hackney, which is also around all of our inclusive economy work. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Glanville, and a very timely kind of piece of work to come forward, led by our councillor colleagues on the commission, the Scrutiny Commission, Skills Economy and Growth. Glanville, when colleagues on the commission actually sort of initiated this particular kind of review, we weren't really in a sort of phase of recession in the United Kingdom, and of course Hackney itself is experiencing that same recession. It's not exempt from what it is that's going on around us at all. But our focus has remained quite clear, and colleagues have also emphasised this focus very much in their 20 recommendations that they have brought forward, and this report responds to. Those 20 recommendations still have a very, very sharp focus on our inclusive economy objectives. They have a sharp focus on policies that make up the heart of our borough's economy: social enterprises, Black and minority ethnic-led businesses. There is a large group. It also looks towards all of those, and under Councillor Williams' oversight and through her leadership, all of those involved in recalibrating and re-engineering, if I may describe it in that way, Councillor Williams, the whole skills agenda and the challenges that are emerging for all of us seeking jobs in the labour market today. I'm sure we're all hearing elements through the news about the impacts that are happening around the country and indeed around London. The main emphasis behind this is about building back better, Mayor Glanville. That does not mean that we are turning our backs as an administration on our inclusive economy objectives. It means that we have to reframe our strategy objectives around inclusivity and our economy within the context of building back better, rather than within the context of a very successful and rapidly growing economy, which was exactly what we were experiencing in Hackney prior to the pandemic and the implications of the pandemic on economic activity. Mayor Glanville, if I may just sort of present the report is as set out to Cabinet colleagues for us to note and to take forward, obviously, to full council. And it clearly demonstrates that there is a lot of ongoing work that can be identified in the recommendations, that they are as set out, and the responses to those recommendations. And that ongoing work is set to continue with colleagues on the Commission over the coming months. Thanks, Mayor Glanville.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. And I think you're taking this discussion to another place this evening, and I'm sure you can take Cabinet's thanks to the Commission with you, and obviously its Chair, Councillor Coban, because it was a really important piece of work that I think, what scrutiny can be used for in terms of co-production as well as critical challenge. I just note that I think we've artificially promoted Stephen Haynes on the cover sheet of the report. I don't think he's quite Group Director yet, although that may well come in due course. We may want to just fix that. But really welcome this report, and I think we've seen quite a lot in terms of some of the visits, the economic visits that some of us have made in Hackney Wick, what we're doing on the ground, and also in Love Our Colleges Week, the importance of FE towards this agenda. And I draw everyone's attention to the video that Councillor Williams and I made with New City College about the importance of FE and skills on this agenda. Are we happy to note the report?
Noted.
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 I think it was noted as well, just to double check. No, approve. So approve. I think we can turn the note to approve. I got behind myself.
Agreed.
Thank you. So item, we can add Councillor Marima's apologies. I know she's at a meeting in Hackney Downs this evening. So item 11 is the resolution to extend the 6-month rule and also captures the changes to Cabinet membership and portfolios that I mentioned up front. I think this is in, I presume, Tim or Dawn's name, and then Cabinet colleagues may just want to touch on the context given some of the debate we've had elsewhere. I'm looking for Tim or Dawn.
Sorry, Meg Lambo, it wouldn't allow me to come off.
No problem.
I'm just going to pull the report up. Sorry for the delay. I would ask colleagues just to note the report as has been prepared. The recommendations are set out quite clearly and colleagues are asked to approve. If there are any questions that you may have in particular, please ask myself. I'll be able to provide a response for colleagues today on the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. I think Deputy Mayor Bramble, although just noting time and the audience may be greater for our comments on Wednesday, but I don't want to cut you off. Deputy Mayor Bramble.
It's just quickly to say, Meg Lambo, the Labour administration, we take our equalities duties really seriously. We've been at the forefront of speaking to councils up and down the country about updating their policies to maternity, paternity and adoptive leave for councillors. And Councillor Williams and I have played a key role in leading that piece of work, and I want to commend her work on the task force. This is put in place to ensure that either backbench councillors or cabinet colleagues have the opportunity to take maternity leave. They have to come to a meeting every 6 months, as you know, but this is to excuse that, but it can be extended up to 12 months. The frustration, Meg Lambo, is that it's really out of touch and out of step and out of kilter in terms of equalities, that you even have to go through this onerous process to get it approved, but it is a legal requirement, and that is why we are here doing this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bramble. Did you want to add to that, Councillor Williams?
No, I think I'll take the opportunity to say anything on Wednesday. I think Councillor Bramble has addressed everything. I'm glad that we are a council at the forefront, leading on the front foot about this.
Thank you. Are we happy to note and pass this on to full council for final approval?
Noted.
Noted.
Yeah, noted.
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 Thank you. I've not been told of any school governor appointments. There are no appointments from Cabinet to outside bodies. There is some appointments to outside bodies that will be covering at full council on Wednesday. I've had no other urgent unrestricted items of business, and I'm taking it that people were content with the handling of the appendix earlier on in the agenda, and I'm not proposing, unless someone jumps in now, to exclude press or public, as we've already agreed that item. And that's the end of business this evening. I look forward to seeing colleagues, if not before, at full council on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and we can end the filming.
Thank you.